Hello guys, this is Naruto-kun and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Got Married to Little Princess Hanabi Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. Okay, congratulations all of you who have passed the test, you are now genin of the Hidden Leaf. You will all meet here tomorrow to receive your team assignments. Those of you who failed will have a short break and then resume your schooling and try again next year. You are all dismissed. So went Iruka's end of the year speech. After the attack on the Hidden Leaf village, Iruka and the other teachers had been sent on missions and the school was closed down. This had only been the second group of students to graduate in 3 years. Thought Iruka as he looked over the list of students. Only 8 students passed, and one of them is a year younger than the others in her class. I will have to speak to the Hokage to determine what to do about the teams, Iruka thought as he walked toward the Hokage's tower. Iruka looked at the top of her file as he walked, even though he knew them all already. Hyuga, Hanabi, age 10. Second daughter of Hiashi Hyuga and possible heir apparent of the Hyuga clan. While Hanabi was not the youngest person to graduate early, they were still rare cases. Even Neji, the Hyuga family's greatest prodigy, did not graduate early. But he was entered late in the normal custom of the branch families. Hanabi was also very arrogant, as is common in many of the noble houses. Just like Sasuke, thought Iruka darkly. He knew that no Hyuga would betray the leaf and that Sasuke was a special case and hurried on to the tower. As Iruka walked towards the tower, he saw Naruto walking back into the town from one of the training fields. His arms were hanging around Kakashi and Yamato, half walking, half being carried. He decided to see what had happened this time and went to talk to his former pupil. Naruto, what did you do this time? Iruka said as he approached the young boy. His cloths were ripped and he looked as if he had been thrown around. Hi Iruka-sensei, said Naruto, cheerful even though he was as exhausted as he looked. I've been training with Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato so I could create a new jutsu. I haven't finished it yet, but when it's done it's gonna be a super rank S jutsu. Awesome, huh? A jutsu that powerful, thought Iruka, would be amazing, but Naruto would never have the patience to complete it. What kind of training have you been doing? You look like you've thrown around all day. I was learning to manipulate my chakra's nature, answered Naruto. If he had one flaw, which he truly had many, it was that Naruto would tell you anything without a second thought. I've already finished that part though, and I'm trying to add the nature to my Rasengan. Kakashi now spoke up in his usual calm and emotionless voice. Naruto, the point of developing jutsu is not to tell others about it. You will just take away from its effectiveness in battle if others already know about it. Ah, but it's only Iruka-sensei, complained Naruto as Kakashi and Yamato dragged Naruto on towards his small house. When Iruka came to the Hokage's tower, the office was not very busy and he was admitted to the Hokage's office soon after arrival. As he entered, he saw that the Hokage's desk where she sat was covered in papers. As he came closer, the young woman, who appeared to be in her 20s, let out a moan followed by a curse, after which saying, I can't believe I lost again. Apparently Tsunade was gambling again and hadn't seen him enter. When he made a small cough, she looked up and greeted Iruka with a guilty smile. Welcome Iruka. What is this about? I'm very busy today. I have the list of new genin Hokage-sama. Unfortunately, there has been a slight problem. Only 8 students graduated this year, leaving one team short one member. Tsunade took the profiles from him and looked through them. After reading each file, she put them down and looked at Iruka. What do you believe should be done about this? We obviously cannot send 2 students back to the academy when they have already passed, and we definitely cannot let a student pass who has not earned it. Iruka thought back on his day in the classroom giving the final test. None who failed would be able to pass the test for a little while yet. Then a thought came to him. Hokage-sama, it is to my understanding that Naruto Uzumaki is still a genin and that High Team has all either become chunin or left. Would it not be appropriate to place him on a genin team so that he can take the Chunin exams? It would solve our problem as well as satisfy the elders since he would be doing low-rank missions, said Tsunade, but I am reluctant to do so. It would prevent him from looking for Sasuke. Also, I would have to assign Captain Yamato as the group leader. But it must be done, I guess. Iruka did understand that he would be upset but thought that Naruto would like to become a Chunin. Something else bothered him now, however. Hokage-sama, I did not know that the elders had a problem with Naruto. Yes, she responded, they are the reason that Captain Yamato had been taken off active duty as a Anbu. He is, whether Naruto relishes it or not, a bodyguard to help protect him. But enough of this, I shall arrange the rest due to your data. If there is nothing more you are dismissed, Iruka, please ask Sakura and Shizune to come into my office. As Iruka left, Tsunade looked down at the files spread over her lottery tickets. She would have to spread them into groups and assign them to the Junin who were available and figure who would have to deal with Naruto. But who can I hate that much to do that to, she thought evilly. Perhaps she could find some way to pass it off. When her two apprentices entered, she bid them close the door and explained to them what was to happen. When she had finished, Sakura finally said, but Tsunade-sensei, then Naruto won't be able to help us look for Sas. Enough, Sakura, said Tsunade, cutting her off. I know how much it means to both you and Naruto to search for Sasuke, but you know how the elders have been. If I do this, it will satisfy them for the time being. Besides, it's not like you will never see Naruto, and eventually the new group that he will be with will be able to help with missions and finding Sasuke. I have no doubt that Naruto would be able to turn them to his cause. Now, Sakura, go find Captain Yamato and Naruto and tell them to come to my office. When Sakura left, Shizune finally broke her quiet as well. I believe you are doing the right thing, Tsunade. We cannot let Naruto be placed in danger. I hope you are right. She onward, go and inform the elders of my decision and come back to me to pick out which of the Junin will lead the other two teams of Genin. Could you not place Kakashi in charge of one of the groups now that Team 7 is no more? Asked the apprentice. No, Team 7 is to function without Naruto in order to gather information on Sasuke and Orochimaru. But let us save this for later. After Shizune left, Tsunade looked at the last of her tickets on the desk. It was a winning number. Omens come in many different forms. Some in change in luck, and sometimes something will simple stick out in your mind. Omens also come in much more complex forms such as dreams. When Hanabi woke up, she couldn't tell whether the night before was a dream or something more. She sat up in her bed and looked at her hands, thinking upon the dream. The first thing she remembered was walking in a great gorge, and at the mouth she could see large rocks that looked sharp as a sword. As she looked towards the mouth, she felt a great maelstrom build within her. As it grew stronger, her vision began to blur. Finally, she felt it eject from her and her vision cleared. She saw the power that had built within her pull against itself. As it pulled, it became more elongated. The opposite sides that pulled out the furthest began to take forms. One side to that of a human's face with a cross in the middle with long hair and soon after wings. The other side was a human face, and as the wings on the former sprouted, tails began to bound out of this figure too. As the tails came, the face became more and more pointed. Then she looked down upon herself and saw for the first time that she herself was stretching. When she pulled to the one side, the form with the wings began to recede. When she moved the other, the pointed face began to recede. She struggled and finally pulled both her hands to her face, and the power that had come from her came back in. Now she looked into her hand and saw two marks form on her hands as if being branded. On the left was that which she knew as the Sharingan, and the other a great spiral. The pain of the burning began to spread through her whole body and began to grow even hotter, and the area that it covered become smaller. As it grew even hotter, she woke sweating, her hands throbbing and silent tears streaming down her face. For a while she stared at her hands. What was it, she thought, no longer seeing her hands? After a while longer she got up from her bed and dressed, her mind wandering towards what the day would hold for her. She was to find out which fools from the academy she would be teamed with. When she finished dressing, she walked through the Hyuga manor towards the main hall where her cousin, Neji, was waiting. As she entered, Neji turned to her and bowed down on one knee to her. "Cousin, I wished to have a word with you before you left to meet your team," said Neji. He was one of the few people whom she truly respected. She could not remember him ever losing even when he was within an inch of his life. "I wished to tell you that your teammates are more than tools. They are people who you must put your utmost trust in." Hanabi let a small laugh loose before walking to the door. Before she left to go to the academy, she said with the laugh still half on her voice, "You, Neji, should know better than to say something like that. You who is the strongest among our line. Others are simply stepping stones for us to be raised higher." With that, she jumped to the top of the stone fence surrounding the manor. Neji watched her go, a frown on his face. As she walked into the classroom, Hanabi looked on the other students. She had never made any effort to become friendly with them. While they gathered to play childish games, she practiced, making herself stronger. To her, they were simply blank faces, two of which would become her tools to use as she saw fit. She sat at the bottom in a row by herself. After a while, a boy, she thought his name was Jakin Oroshi, came and sat in the same row as her. He was a wit-haired boy with skin amazingly just as white as the hair and bright red eyes. After a few silent moments between the two, and as other students began to group up and have conversations on the higher platforms, he decided to try and start a conversation. "You're Hanabi Hyuga, right? I've heard a lot about your clan from my father." No response at all. The boy, a year older than her, decided to ask a friendly question to the girl, her eyes fixed straight ahead. "Is it weird being from a huge family like that?" To this she replied without ever moving her eyes, "No." After this, the boy seemed to lose hope and stood up and walked away to sit at a different set of desks. Shortly after, Aruka walked into the classroom and called his students to attention. "Today you enter the ninja world," said Aruka, his voice proud and full of confidence. "While you are ninja, you are merely genin and must be placed under the supervision of junin instructors who will help guide you in training and in missions you will complete on behalf of the village. You will now be placed into the three-man teams decided based on your different techniques, strengths and weaknesses by the Hokage herself. First Team 13. Hanabi stopped listening for a while and thought, "Great, I shall be placed on a team with the weakest of these tools." It did not matter, however. She needed no tools for herself to be just as effective, her tools would just be worse for the wear. Aruka called. "And the last team, Team 15, Hanabi Hyuga and Jakin Oroshi. You will wait here for your instructors to come and get you." Hanabi heard his voice, and for a second she sat there and looked around at those in the small classroom, only 8, then called out at Aruka in a scornful voice, "What do you mean? What of my last team member?" "Hanabi," Aruka answered calmly, "only 8 students passed the final exam this year, but do not worry, you are going to be given an alternative team member in place of the one who would normally be from your class." Aruka then went and waited outside the classroom. Hanabi sat there thinking of what Aruka said. An alternative teammate would be provided. This was no way for the Hokage to treat one of the Hyuga clan. Then her thoughts turned to her other teammate. If I remember correctly, then he was no underachiever yet no genius either. He could become a more useful tool than some here who are given the name of shinobi. The first of the Junin came and took her team, followed by the second. A minute or two passed and the door opened again to let in a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes in orange pants and an orange and black jacket, and around his neck, tied on a string, was a small piece of metal. Hanabi thought she had seen him somewhere before, but she soon dismissed it from her mind. This was obviously not their instructor, so either he was lost or was the new team member. The boy said under his breath, so she could barely heard it, "Never thought I'd be in this rat hole again." And then looked up at the two genin, then said in a loud voice, "Hiya. You must be the team the Hokage put me on. Captain Yamato is just talking to Aruka-sensei. He'll be in soon." The boy Jacken asked the blonde boy some questions. Who are you? A simple enough question which the boy answered with a big grin. Hehe, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Next he asked, you're a genin, right? How long have you been one? The Naruto's smile fading a little, he answered, yay, I've been a genin for 3 years now. Hanabi couldn't help but bring the tool down a little. Ha, you've been a genin for 3 years and you still think to call yourself a ninja, how pathetic. How much of a failure you must be, and here I thought my luck was going to hold out after getting at least a half-decent tool on my team. Now I see that I have a fool and a tool better discarded lest it cuts the one who wields it. Naruto's smile was now gone. He looked at her eyes and said, just like Neji used to be. And then he went and sat by Jacken. Soon enough Yamato entered the room soon after Hanabi's speech. He was a man dressed in a green jacket that most Junin wore, and on his face was a yellow support that would normally hold a mask on his face during combat. The man himself had short black hair and eyes that seemed drawn into his face. Well, Team 15, shall we go somewhere more comfortable so we can get acquainted? After leaving the classroom, the newly formed group walked towards one of the training fields. Yamato had received a briefing on his 2 new students from Iruka and knew there were going to be plenty of yelling on Naruto's part before long. He remembered when he and Naruto were called to the Hokage's office to be informed. Naruto, Yamato, thank you for getting here so quickly, said Tsunade standing to greet them. Naruto of course couldn't keep his mouth shut. Yay, what did you want to tell us, Grandma? I'm supposed to be training and Sakura-chan made it seem really important. Obviously a little irritated, Tsunade went on. Yes, I know you have been training, but you are the only genin that doesn't have a 3-man team with other genin. You see, only 8 students were made genin this year, so 1 team is short. We need someone to fill that space. What? You mean you're putting me on a genin team again? That's ridiculous. Like it or not, Naruto, retorted Tsunade, you are a genin still and there is no one else available. Naruto, who was clearly not liking this, had crossed his arms and started mumbling under his breath. Tsunade decided to approach this from a new angle. Naruto, you do wish to become a chunin, right? Naruto put his hands at his side and stared at her and nodded. Well, in order to take the chunin exams you need a 3-man team consisting of genin. Think of this as a way to become a chunin. Oh, alright, but I'm not gonna like it. Captain Yamato, Tsunade went on, you will of course be the team's leader for obvious reasons. Of course, Hokage-sama. Good. Both of you will report to the academy tomorrow to receive your new team. You are dismissed. He knew that this was very irregular. Naruto was at nearly, if not surpassing, the Junin level. It had to be because of the elders then, they had been bothering her since before he had left his Anbu position. Perhaps she truly did want Naruto to become a chunin and there was an opening in a new team, but those were just minor things. Her decision had more meaning than what Naruto, and most others, knew. Soon they arrived at a wooded training area, like a smaller, and far less dangerous, version of the Forest of Death. Yamato sat at the base of one of the trees on the outskirts of the field, soon followed by his new team. He would need to get to know them a little first. Okay, now let's introduce ourselves to each other. I'm Captain Yamato. I've been training with Naruto for a little while, and my goal is to see Naruto, and both of you now, through your training. Now each of you, tell us your name, something about you, and one goal of yours. Let's start on the left. The first was the white-haired boy. I'm Jacken Orochi. My entire family moved here from the Lightning Village 5 years ago, and my goal is to make my family's name known one day. Very good. Next, you young lady. Hanabi, who sat in between Naruto and Jacken, let out a sigh then introduced herself. I'm Hanabi Hyuga. I'm a member of the Hyuga family, and my goal is to inherit the title as head of my clan. She sparked Naruto's interest. Are you related to Hinata-chan and Neji-kun? Yes, she said irritably. I am Neji's cousin and unfortunately Hinata is my sister. Yamato took in her words. I'll have to look into her and the boy a little farther. Then he said to the group, lastly, Naruto. Naruto, who had been looking at Hanabi, turned and looked at Yamato. Right. Said the boy, who had been thinking to himself. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I'm working on a new jutsu, and my goal is to become the Hokage someday. Hanabi couldn't help herself. How could this fool think to have such a lofty goal? He'll be lucky if he becomes a chunin after another 3 years. She proceeded to tell Naruto what she thought of this. Ha, you must be joking. You've been a genin for 3 years and you think that you can become Hokage. How delusional do you think the people of the leaf are? Hearing this, Yamato intervened. Hanabi, no goal is impossible to fulfill. You know that the legendary 3 started out as normal genin as well. Hanabi just closed her eyes. Whatever. Yamato let a small frown cross his face. Very well, let's continue. A fellow shinobi told me of his method for testing students' abilities. With this, he pulled out 2 bells. Naruto, seeing the bell, let out a grin. Hee, I remember this test. Hope you can stand up to it, Captain Yamato. Naruto, said Yamato, you will not be participating. What? Why? I already know your strengths and weaknesses. This test will just be for the others. I want you to watch and learn as much as you can of their styles. Oh, okay. Between you and the old woman, I'm not going to make any progress. Turning to the other 2 students, Yamato gave his instructions. Once I say start, you will have until sundown to try and get the bells from me. Feel free to use any jutsu you may know. You will have to come at me with your all or you will never get both bells from me. You will need to use every skill a shinobi is supposed to have. He waited a few moments to see them both nod their heads, then, start. Naruto watched as both of the new genin took of and hid. I wonder if they will actually be able to work together. He doubted it though. That Hanabi is too much like how Neji and Sasuke were. She'll more likely try and use Jakin. Thinking of Sasuke though brought back memories he wished to keep away. Instead, he turned his attention to how the 2 were doing against Yamato. Jakin had been hidden for a minute or 2. He hadn't seen Hanabi, but had Yamato in his sight. The man had not been moving, most likely giving a head start. Okay, a head-on attack won't work, only a fool would try and do that against a Junin. If I knew where Hanabi was, we could try and team up against him, but she doesn't seem to like teamwork. My only chance is to find her though. He took one more look at Yamato and jumped from tree to tree looking for his new teammate. Eventually he saw her. She was looking at him with the veins around her eyes visible. The Byakugan thought, Jakin. What are you doing? Said the young Hyuga with scorn clear on her voice. Are you trying to give my location away? We need to have a plan to get the bells. The girl glared at him for a second, a look of distaste, and then gave a little smile. Very well. Go out there and distract him as best you can, then I'll go in and attack him when you've thrown him off balance. I can handle the rest. Jakin was shocked by her assumption. You just expect me to distract him? You're going to just send me out there against a Junin? Are you crazy? Just go, I have a plan and he shouldn't hurt you on purpose, he is our teacher. As you said, we need to work together to get a bell. He had no choice, the girl left no room for question. He went and searched for the best place for him to attack. When he had the spot where Yamato was, he was not surprised to see that he had left. Quickly he scanned the area for any obvious marks and pulled out and held 3 shuriken between his fingers. Captain Yamato was good. Jakin could see 3 trip-wire traps and there were sure to be others. If I try and sneak by the traps, I would have to go slower and probably be seen. If I go too fast, I would most likely set off a trap I don't see. I could try and go around, but by knowing the center is protected, he'll watch the sides. I could try and set them off from a distance, it will give away my location, but it could force him to move and give away his position. Jakin decided to try and set the traps he could see. He looked a little longer and saw 3 more traps. He would have to be quick, so he put two shuriken in each hand and threw one after another. As soon as the first one hit its wire, he jumped away to hide. He heard a loud banging as several falling branches fell, followed by the sound of flying kunai and the light and sound of a flash bang. He reached in and grabbed another shuriken and a kunai. He threw the shuriken and it hit its wire, but nothing happened. He took advantage of the failed trap and ran on through. When he made it past, he jumped onto a tree and looked around. Yamato still hadn't been seen. Then he felt something on his right hand. He looked down and saw wood growing and attaching to his hand and wrist. Yamato walked out and started talking. "Very good, Jacken. You saw my traps and countered them as would have been best. You had to stop and think first, which shows me you have patience, but you saw one trap that didn't do anything and marched on." Yamato was here, so Jacken took the initiative again and pulled against the wood and struck at a thin point with the kunai in his other hand. He broke enough wood that he pulled his hand free and kicked at Yamato with his right leg, cutting Yamato's speech short. He followed the kick through and kicked off against the tree. In mid-air he made 3 hand signs, and when he landed his body began to glow fiercely. Static light no jutsu. He crossed his arms and then rubbing them together spread his arms out. All the light moved from his whole body to his arms and then left his body. Quickly the lights moved as he moved his hands, moving the lights towards Yamato. Unable to look at the lights directly, which burned his eyes when he first looked at the attack coming from his body, Yamato jumped out of the way of one, then rebounding off a tree he evaded the second. Jacken had taken advantage of his teacher's lack of momentum and attacked. He didn't go for the bells immediately, instead punching toward Yamato mid-air and grabbing him to throw him down and prevent him from landing on his feet. The move, however, didn't work as Yamato made a few quick seals and the ground he landed on became soft. As he got up, Jacken charged forward, again making his 3 seals. This time though he crossed his fingers and sent forth 8 smaller and dimmer lights. Yamato saw these ones and quickly dodged these 2 at a time and made 4 seals of his own, and before Jacken knew it his legs were ensnared by large roots. Though Jacken was trapped, Hanabi saw her chance and took it. She had set up 2 sets of kunai that could be sprung by pulling on wires. She pulled the first and they went flying towards Yamato, the farthest to the left getting stuck in the wood that surrounded Jacken's legs. Yamato expertly dodged these, and as he was landing the second volley was loose to where he would land. He landed and jumped a split second before the volley hit. As soon as the second volley had landed, she jumped out, her Byakugan activated. She saw his speed, angle, and height in air and made a rough estimation to where he would land and prepared 6 shuriken, throwing them to the general area, and then ran forward herself. Yamato made a few seals mid-air to catch the shuriken. As he landed though, she struck her real target. She did not aim for a critical point, it could have left her open and would have been more difficult. Instead she hit a pressure point in the right leg with her gentle fist style. That should disable it, she thought. Then with his slowed motions she aimed for a pressure point in the left arm just above the armpit, again disabling the limb and his ability to use jutsu. With an opening now available, she gave a kick to the face that bent him to the right side and went for the bells. As her fingers touched the bells, Yamato spun the top half of his body and grabbed her wrist. Seeing his movements with the Byakugan, she let him grab her wrist only to have a pressure point on his forearm hit with another gentle fist. Now she calmly grabbed one of the bells from his side. She looked down on him with a grin of satisfaction. "Well, seems like I win." And she began to walk away from Jacken and Yamato. "Where are you going, Hanabi?" asked Yamato. "Why, I'm done," she responded. "I have my bell already, so there is no point in me continuing." "What about your teammate? Are you just going to leave him? You nearly hit him with that first set of kunai and you simply leave him to the enemy and go on by yourself. When you're in a real combat situation, the enemy won't leave your teammate alive. I could have bounded him earlier when I had his hand and you didn't make a movement to help him. You just waited for your moment to strike." "Yes, but I knew the circumstances were not life or death, so I did not see it imperative to help him." This exercise is meant to prepare you for situations where they are life or death moves like the ones you pulled could get your whole team killed. You must actively work together. Whatever. And she began to walk away. Jackin, who was stuck, overheard all of this and grew more and more angry. What the hell is wrong with you, bitch? You do have a heart, right? Yes, I do. She said then. Shinobi rule number 25. No matter what the situation, a shinobi must keep his emotions on the inside. You must make the mission your top priority, and you must possess the heart to never show tears. Remember that. I do have a heart, the heart of a shinobi. Yamato just sighed, his arms heavy at his sides. Where's Naruto? We're done for the day. Naruto woke up to the violent shaking of his body. As he sat up, he looked forward and saw Captain Yamato sitting against a tree stretching out his arms. Next to him was the white-haired Jackin, who had apparently woken him up. As he tried to stand up, a stinging pain went through his head and his hands jumped to the back of his head. Are you okay? Asked Jackin. What happened? Naruto sat there and thought about what happened before he lost conciseness. As Naruto watched to see who would make the first move against Yamato, he went up a tree to watch. After about 5 minutes passed, Yamato left the spot where he had been standing and went deeper into the forest. Naruto followed and watched the former Anbu set up some obvious kunai and wood traps with his wire and wood jutsu. He then jumped through and used his wood jutsu to hide inside a tree and wait. Soon Naruto saw Jackin hiding in the treetops looking down at the trapped area. Soon he pulled out several shuriken and threw them at the wires. He jumped and threw one after another. When they hit, 4 traps sprung. When the 5th did not, though, he ran through and landed on the tree that Yamato was inside. Bad luck for him, said Naruto silently. As expected, the wood came up and surrounded on of his hands. Yamato came out of the tree and approached Jackin and started talking. Wasting no time, the boy used the kunai in his other hand, freed himself and went into a kick and jumped down to the ground, making seals. The boy suddenly started glowing and a bright light came out of his body. Naruto, blocking the light with his hands, felt himself lose balance and felt himself fall. Then nothing more. Naruto looked at Jackin, still holding his head. I fell off the tree when you used your jutsu. What was that you used? Jackin, giving a guilty smile, answered, Oh, that. It was my static light no jutsu. It turns my chakra into a bright electric light. It might look dangerous, but this version of it wouldn't hurt you unless you keep looking at it. Really? For a second there I thought you were going to use Chidori. Were you learn a jutsu like that? Asked Naruto. Jackin looked at Naruto with a look of surprise on his face. I thought you would have figured it out. I told you my family was from the Lightning Village originally. My family has developed this jutsu and others. What, you're from the Lightning Village? I thought we were at war with them for a long time and still weren't allies. Jackin let out a sigh and answered the question, obviously having heard them before. My mother and father decided to move our entire family here 5 years ago because how peaceful it was here. The Lightning Village is nothing like here. They are always preparing for a war, as if it will come any day now. That was when we left though. Since Orochimaru attacked Konoha, it might have gotten even worse. Oh, okay. Tell me more about your jutsu. It seemed real. Not now, Naruto, broke in Yamato, who had managed to stand up and was leaning against the tree, his right leg still not working properly. Naruto saw this and inquired to what happened. Yamato informed Naruto on what Hanabi had done and what she said. Naruto, don't do anything brash, said Yamato. While what she did might seem wrong to you, her reasoning was that of a shinobi, and she was right when it came down to cold logic. Naruto obviously didn't like this answer and made it known. What? She is supposed to be on our team and she did something like that. She's worse than Sasuke or Neji ever were. At least neither of them ever tried to use their teammates and nearly injure them and leave them to die in enemy hands. No, said Naruto when Yamato tried to intervene. I don't care if it was an exercise or she knew he wouldn't get hurt. The meaning of the bell test is teamwork. Something she doesn't know anything abo. Enough Naruto, yelled Yamato, giving Naruto his scary eyes. I know how you feel about teamwork and all, but it's not your place to decide. I am her sensei and she is the member of the most powerful clan in Konoha. If she is simply disciplined without the notification or consent of the clan head, there could be grave repercussions for the village. Since Orochimaru attacked, the village still hasn't gotten back to its full power, and the loss of the Hyuga clan could be crippling. Jacken broke in here, having been the one used and nearly hurt, but Naruto is right, she can't be allowed to just get away with this. Something has to be done. And it will, said Yamato, but that is between the Hyuga and the Hokage. Now Naruto, help me out here, my leg is still numb and not moving completely, though it should be better by morning. With that, the threesome walked back to the village and to the Hokage's tower. When Yamato went into the Hokage's office, Sakura came out. Glad to see the pink-haired girl after the morning fiasco, Naruto went up to her to start a conversation. Hey, Sakura-chan. Hey Naruto. What's wrong with Captain Yamato? It looks like he has a limp there. Yeah, said Naruto with the smile leaving his face. It happened during a bell test with the new team. Oh yay, you have a new genin team. What are they like? Well, the one over there, said Naruto pointing to Jacken, who was leaning against a wall left of Naruto. It's pretty nice and he has a really cool jutsu. But the other one is the one who gave Captain Yamato the limp. She is Hinata's little sister, so it didn't take much to give him a limp. Yeah, I'll never be able to get over the fact that there are people who can do stuff like that with a touch. She is real arrogant like Neji used to be, said Naruto, but I'll put up with her if it means I can become a chunin. Sakura let out a small laugh and smiled at Naruto. You're still not over not being chunin yet. A little irritated, Naruto answered, well yeah. You were allowed to take Shikamaru's spot on Asuma's team and the others all passed their chunin exams as teams. I'm the only one. Besides, said Naruto, getting a big grin that seemed to cover his face, how am I supposed to become Hokage if I'm just a genin? Jacken watched as Naruto and some pink-haired girl talked. He wondered what kind of person he was. He didn't seem arrogant like Hanabi and he didn't really care what Jacken looked like the other kids at the academy. Naruto was a nearly complete stranger and yet he treated Jacken like more of a friend than anyone else in Konoha. It was so strange. Presently a young girl with long blue hair walked in. She had on black pants and a black jacket that was zipped all the way up. It was her eyes that Jacken paid real attention to. Her eyes were all white, the eyes of a Hyuga. Jacken kept staring at her, wondering if she was like Hanabi. Eventually she saw him staring, and he noticed he had put a frown on his face without noticing it. The girl lowered her eyes the corner and kept walking forward. Hey Hinata-chan, yelled a zealous Naruto, how ya doing? The girl blushed and pit her fingers together. Oh, Naruto-kun. I didn't see you there. How are you? The girl obviously had a crush on Naruto. Even Jacken could tell, and it was the first time he had seen her. Oh, I'm doing great. The smile slipped from his face. Hey Hinata, said Naruto, his voice becoming serious, what can you tell me about your sister? The small girl, clearly shocked by the question, answered, Hanabi. Not very much. She is my little sister, but we don't get along very well since father had chose to train her instead of me. She is very proud of the clan and has trained very hard since she was 5 in order to graduate from the academy and be named clan heir. The girl looked down at the ground sadly. No, she was clearly not like Hanabi at all. Oh, okay. I was just wondering because I'm on her genin team now. Hinata looked up with surprise. Really? I had forgotten you were a genin still. The pink-haired girl, he thought he heard Naruto call her Sakura, smiled and put her arm around his neck and pulled his head down. Oh yeah, Hinata, and neither can he. Hinata let out a small laugh at the scene and Jacken couldn't help but laugh too. It was when he laughed that Sakura noticed him. Naruto's head still firmly in her arms, she called over to him, hey, you're Jacken, right? You're on Naruto's team too now, right? MMHH, mumbled Naruto, whose mouth was covered by Sakura's arm. Yes, I am. I'm Jacken Orochi. It's a pleasure to meet you. Hi, I'm Sakura Haruno, said Sakura. I'm Hinata Hyuga, said Hinata very meekly. Jacken felt bad now. Was she being so meek because he had stared at her like that? It's very nice to meet you both. You were both genin with Naruto. Sakura smiled. Yeah, I was on a team with him. Oh, I hope your other teammate won't be too disappointed at losing him, said Jacken sincerely. Though when he said it, the smile left her face. Hinata too looked upset by what he said and her eyes went back down to the ground. Sakura gave a weak smile and said, I'm sure Sasuke misses Naruto a lot. Yamato came out of the office, his limp on his right leg not as bad as it was anymore. Alright, team, we have the rest of the day off. Then he noticed Hinata there. Oh Hinata, would you save me a trip and tell your sister to report here in the morning for our first mission? Yes, Yamato-sama. I'm sorry I cannot talk, Sakura-chan, but I must give my report to the Hokage. And with that the young woman went into the office. Yamato had begun to walk out the door and Jacken was about to follow, then realized something. Sakura-chan. Yeah, can Naruto-kun breath like that? And Sakura dropped Naruto onto the ground. Yamato laid in his bed thinking about what had happened today. That girl, what is she? Thought Yamato to himself, I wouldn't fight back and she knew this, but to go so far and to be so aggressive. She was ready to sacrifice her teammate to accomplish her objective and used my unwillingness to strike back as a tool against me. The training her father is giving her must be extreme. Yamato had asked the Hokage about his two new students. The girl was a possible heir apparent for the clan, making the clan more unstable. A true heir would have to chosen soon between the two sisters. In addition, she was being schooled in the ways of the gentle fist by her father. He could feel the effects, even though she isn't an official heir. Being brought up as the favorite daughter of the clan head had made her more and more proud and very conceited the stronger she had become. There was no doubt that she was gifted, if not as gifted as her cousin Neji. By using the gentle fist she was able to take him down. Needless to say, he would be more careful around her. He didn't think his student would use such force against him and didn't even bother with a clone. The boy on the other hand was very different. His family, a minor shinobi clan from the Lightning Village, had moved to Konoha 5 years ago to stay here in peace. Here though they were outcasts for being from the Lightning Village. Years of war and a shaky agreement on both sides not to attack had given the people a bad image of the clan and any from the village. The clansmen and women were shinobi in the village, and though the third Hokage had agreed to treat them as equals, they had managed to get the short end of the stick many times. Yamato was surprised when the boy came out and said he was from the Lightning Village. Though he suspected Naruto didn't pay much attention, Hanabi Mahaven could start some trouble if she wanted to. The boy had a good goal though, to have his clan recognized. He prayed that things would start getting better. He had no idea. Jacken was up before sunrise. He dressed in his black shorts and black t-shirt with his family's crest on the shoulder, a four-pronged star with light rays coming off it. He meditated, and practiced a little on his punching bag. When he had finished at 7 he ate some fruit and went for a run before his mission at 8. At sunrise Hanabi woke up and got dressed in the black, loose-fitting cloths the Hyuga normally wore. She meditated, did some yoga stretches, and did a quick spare with her uncle. And by 7:15 was walking towards town before her mission. At about 7:30 in the morning Naruto woke up and crawled out of bed. He got changed into a new set of cloths and sulked into the bathroom, then kitchen. After checking the expiration date on the milk he chugged it and walked out the door for the first of the D-rank missions he would have to endure. When Naruto arrived at the Hokage's tower a little before 8 he saw Jacken and Hanabi already there. A few minutes later Yamato arrived, the limp no longer in his leg. All three of them stood and followed him into the tower. Inside Sakura, Shizune, and a few others were rushing around doing paperwork, and handing out missions to shinobi already there. The group walked up to the desk that Shizune was sitting at. When they approached, she looked up from her paperwork. Ah, hello Naruto, Captain Yamato. I have your first mission right here. When you're done, she said, adding this part for the two new genin, come back here and get your pay and another mission. Yamato took the folder from her hand and the group walked out the door. When they got outside, Naruto asked a smiling Jacken, why are you so happy? We're getting our first mission today. Naruto let out a little laugh and thought to himself, more like community service. Jacken was of course upset when he heard they were to go pull weeds, but didn't complain. They did 2 more by the end of the day. Naruto thought to himself, old Grandma Hokage must really have it out for me. During the next week the group followed the same general routine with doing a few missions or training. A week after they started doing missions, they went to the Hokage's tower for a new mission. They went to Shizune as usual and she told them that the Hokage would like to give them the mission. Naruto perked right up after hearing this. He knew that the Hokage gave out missions above D rank personally. When they entered, they saw Sakura giving Tsunade a small stack of papers and telling her that the mission was successful and all the information was in the reports. She turned around to leave and saw Naruto. As she walked past him, she whispered to him, we might have less time than we thought, and left. Yamato then walked up and said, standing up straight, Team 15 reporting for orders. Tsunade sighed, at ease, Captain. Well, it appears you are all doing a good job. There have been no complaints from any customers and few complaints from Naruto. At that remark, Naruto began to glare at the woman, so I'm giving you a C rank mission. You are to escort a woman from Konoha to the Wave Country, so she can trade for goods there. I thought it would be appropriate for Naruto. Thank you, Hokage-sama, we will leave once we meet up the women. With that, Yamato took the small package from the Hokage's hand. Naruto was clearly thrilled at the mission. Not only would it mean leaving the village again, but it would mean getting to see his friends in the Wave Country. The group went to the women's house and told her they would be meeting at the front gate in a couple of hours so she could get her goods ready. When they got there, the old women who they were escorting had a group of 4 wagons hitched and ready to go. Each took a wagon to guard, Yamato in the front, Naruto in the back, and the others in the middle. It took them 2 days to get to the bridge that Naruto remembered being built. Once they reached the safety of the bridge, the shinobi got off and walked the rest of the way to the village. They would be here for a couple of days and then escort the old woman back to Konoha. As they walked, Naruto began to tell about his first trip here. Hanabi could not help but interrupt once they got to the part about him and the others freeing Kakashi from Zabuza. Do you really expect us to buy this crap? Sharingan Kakashi and Zabuza, the devil of the bloody mist. If you were really in that fight, then you would have been killed instantly. Those 2 are legends. There is no way that Sharingan Kakashi would have been captured and no way you would have been able to free him from Zabuza. Jacken also commented here, sorry Naruto, but she is right, you wouldn't stand a chance. Naruto, obviously bothered by their comments, tried to defend himself, but it did happen, no matter how unlikely it seems. With a little grin, Hanabi let out a laugh. The weakling thinks us to really believe this. I'm sorry, but a weakling who has been a genin for 3 years and runs off any time we do group training would have had no chance against Zabuza. She did wonder though, why he went off by himself for training. If she saw him again afterwards, he would have cuts in his cloths and on his skin. Yamato always tells him not to work on the jutsu, just manipulation. Whatever it was, she was sure that it was rough on him. A little while after they reached the end of the bridge, Naruto, getting excited again, asked Yamato if he could leave to see his friends. Yes, but remember, we're going to stay at the old women's brother's place. After he left, Hanabi couldn't have been happier, glad that liar is gone. Yamato turned around and looked at the pair. You know, Naruto isn't as weak as you think he is. He has gone through a lot. You really shouldn't take him for granted. Then he pointed to a carving in the stone pillar at the end of the bridge and walked away. Jacken and Hanabi walked up to the carving and read what it said. The great Naruto bridge, where our courage is built and our dreams are realized. Hanabi couldn't believe it. It had to be coincidence or a lie. No way what that fool said was true. She would have to ask someone when she got a chance. Later in the day they were all brought to the old women's brother's place. While they were all getting ready for bed that night, Hanabi asked the old women about the bridge's name. The bridge? Why? I thought you would know. That boy you're traveling with, he and the other members of his group defeated the man Zabuza Momochi and his partner Haku. It was so sad to see that young man, Haku, die. From what Naruto-kun told us, Zabuza was all that the boy had and he died so Zabuza would live. By doing all of this, Naruto helped bring the courage back to the people, and with that courage came hope. It was more than Hanabi thought of the fool. How could he have done all of that? While I never saw him train, how could he remain a genin for 3 years unless he was weak? Presently Yamato knocked on the door and came in. Hanabi, we will be doing chakra exercises tomorrow, so rest up, okay? In the morning they all went off to a clearing in a forest. When they were there, Yamato explained the lesson. They would be climbing trees using chakra, with their feet. Naruto demonstrated it, by charging the chakra in his feet and walking straight up the tree. He told them to get a running start, or they were more likely to fall, and to mark of their heights with kunai. Both of the genin charged the chakra to their feet and started running. Jacken made it about a third of the way up the tree and then had to jump. Hanabi, though, didn't make it half as far. Once she hit the tree, she started to release the chakra rapidly, causing her to go flying farther from the tree instead of sticking to it. Unfortunately for her, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. If you're so smart, Blondie, she yelled at him, losing her temper for the first time in front of him, why don't you tell me what I did wrong? To her surprise, he actually answered, do you know the Kaden? Yes, you idiot, I'm being taught it by my father. Why? Hanabi was sure she would get this no problem. What was she doing wrong? You're used to trying to push all of the built chakra out of your body as fast as you can. Doing that with this will simply send you flying. Fool, like I would make a mistake like that. She said, but really thought, damn it, how could I make such a mistake? And it was obvious too. To her surprise though, Naruto did not try and bring her down like she had expected. Instead, he jumped down from the tree and stood in front of her thinking. Finally he told her, why don't you use your Byakugan to see how I do it? It might not be a Sharingan, but you will see how the chakra flows. It was another obvious thing to do. Why is he helping me like this? All I've ever shown him is scorn. But help her he did. Jacken was able to pick up on the trick too. By sundown they could make it almost halfway. The point of this is to fine-tune your chakra control, said Yamato as they walked back. You both are doing good, better than Naruto or Sasuke did when they started this lesson. How long did it take you and this Sasuke to get to the top? Asked Jacken. 7 days, and on the 7th night we both made it to the top. Said Naruto, a small smile on his face from the memory of that night. Was that right before you fought Zabuza and the boy Haku? Asked Hanabi. Naruto just looked at her for a couple of seconds before answering. Yeah, we fought on the bridge before it was completed. Why? I thought you didn't believe me. Just curious to what kind of lie you make up this time. So what happened? Naruto went on and talked about what had happened until nightfall. That night, after Hanabi went to her room, Jacken asked Naruto, why did you do all of that for Hanabi today? She doesn't deserve it. Naruto looked at him and after a few seconds he said, when me, Sasuke, and Sakura were all in a team together, we all had some really good memories. Hanabi reminds me a lot about Sasuke. Besides, we need to work on teamwork. I know my friend Shikamaru would kill to get you on his team. Jacken gave a little laugh then asked, you always talk about this Sasuke guy like he gone. What happened? Sasuke was a great friend and a rival, said Naruto after a while. He and I were always at odds, but we were still friends. 2.5 years ago he left the Leaf and joined the Sound. Jacken left it at that. In the morning the group prepared to leave. They helped the old woman hitch up the wagons and set out to make the 2-day journey back home. She had finished all the trading she needed to do early so they would be able to go today. The first day went by smoothly. On the second day, about an hour or two from Konoha, though, things became interesting. While an hour or so from Konoha, Jacken asked some questions about Hanabi's Byakugan. How does it work? What exactly do you see? Hanabi tried to tell him as best she could, getting more and more irritated. When she finally activated it and tried to explain what she saw, something caught her attention. Captain Yamato, she called. We're being followed. If Yamato was worried about who they were, he didn't let it on. Where are they and how many? He asked calmly. There are 4, she said, and they are coming in on us fast from the back. Yamato gave out orders. Hanabi and Jacken would stay and guard the cargo, and the old woman, Naruto, and him would confront the pursuers and deal with them. Naruto and Yamato prepared themselves at the back, and when they came into view there were indeed 4. The first one that came jumped over the 2. Before either could attack they had their hands full, as one attacked Naruto and the last 2 attacked Yamato. When Naruto got a good look at the attackers, he saw that they were from the Sound Village. Hanabi, Jacken watched the old women and the wagons. Naruto, you and me will meet them head on. We don't know how strong they are, so don't get carried away and lose your head, said Yamato. And Naruto, don't try and use your new jutsu yet, it's not finished. Soon the enemy were in sight. They were all dressed in black clothing and the standard yellow and black spotted neck liners. The first on came at them and then jumped straight over their heads. Before Naruto or Yamato could do anything, though, they both had their own enemies to deal with. One of them came at Naruto and the last 2 attacked Yamato. When Naruto finally got a good look at the enemy, he saw they were Sound Nin. Damn it! Yelled Naruto, can't you people just leave the leaf alone? Your master has already taken enough from us. The Sound Nin, however, didn't stop to listen to Naruto. He rushed on and pulled out a kunai in his right hand. As Naruto finished he rambling, the nin was nearly on him. Naruto dodged to the nin's right. The nin saw and gaining momentum slashed to the right, turning his whole body towards Naruto. Naruto saw the attack coming and ducked down a little. The kunai went through some hair and open air. The nin followed through and punched at Naruto with his left hand, which Naruto dipped the rest of the way down to avoid. The nin then brought up the kunai and stabbed down at Naruto, who was close to the ground now. Naruto dived to the left and out of the way as the man swung up with the kunai. Naruto, getting his balance back by putting some space between him and his enemy, readied 3 shuriken. He, I'm glad Ero-sensei taught me this jutsu, thought Naruto, who made a few quick hand signs with his left hand while jumping up into the air. Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu, throwing the 3 stars which soon turned into thousands. The Sound Nin jumped out of the way of the shuriken as best he could, getting some stuck in his left arm and leg. As Naruto came down, Naruto made the quick signs for his Kage Bushin, and when he landed he ran forward, the 2 Bushin he created running a little behind him to either side. The Sound Nin made some hand signs and the kunai in his hand started to glow. He threw it at the first Naruto, who simply ducked it. The first Naruto jumped up and went in for a kick to the head. The nin stopped this by crossing both of his and blocking the hit. The kicker jumped up though. Soon the Naruto on the left had sped up and delivered a punch to the nin's stomach, so he bent, doubled over, followed by the last Naruto kicking the feet out from under the nin. Soon the Naruto who had jumped up came down to land on the fallen nin. Before he could land though, he was struck by a kunai and he disappeared into a puff of smoke. The nin pulled out another kunai while getting up and stabbed down at the Naruto who had cut the legs from under him. This Naruto also appeared to be a clone. The first Naruto backed away, looking to either side to see if there were any more kunai coming. The Sound Nin stood up and made more seals, and the kunai he held glowed like the other. He then held out his hand and the kunai that had taken out the first Naruto flew back to his hand. Like it, I can hit any target with this jutsu. and he threw both kunai at Naruto. Naruto jumped up into a tree that was near at hand. The kunai though followed him up. As fast as he could, Naruto grabbed a kunai and was able to block one of the hits, the other struck him in the shoulder. The nin put both of his hands forward again and the kunai in Naruto's shoulder flew out and went back to the nin's hand. Naruto gasped in pain and dropped the kunai in his hand. "Shall we try something more complex?" said the nin and threw the two kunai down into the ground and pulled out 6 shuriken. Holding the all in one hand, the nin did the seals. Naruto pulled out 2 kunai, wincing with pain as he bent his shoulder over. The nin threw the glowing shuriken, 3 at a time. Once they were out of his hands, he put his palms downward and the 2 kunai that he threw went right back up and were in pursuit of the shuriken. Naruto blocked first one, then the second and third shuriken with his right kunai. He was able to move his left arm up in time to stop the 4th shuriken, but he winced in pain and was hit in the arm by the last 2 shuriken and fell out of the tree he had been perched in. The kunai that would have hit him logged into the branch. "I need to end this fast," thought Naruto as several flashes came from the area of the wagons, to the left of Naruto. The nin looked over to where the others were fighting. Naruto, seeing him distracted, ran forward. "I can end it with that," thought Naruto, charging the chakra to his hands. Nearing into the nin, he was seen. The nin put his hands forward to call his weapons back. He said, "He that want work, they'll just get you from behind." The 2 shuriken in his arm came flying out and Naruto, who winced in pain, ran on. As the weapons came closer back to him, Naruto punched an open palm, about a yard from the nin, shooting a lance of wind towards the nin's heart, piercing him through. The weapons that the nin was calling back flew on for a little while longer, then dropped out of the air. Naruto held on to his arm and shoulder where he had been hit and had the weapons pulled back out. He looked around and saw Hanabi and Jacken struggling with their shinobi enemy and Yamato, though a Junin, struggling against the 2 shinobi he was fighting. Though Naruto wanted to go and help the man who had become another sensei and another bond to him, he knew that the other 2 probably wouldn't be able to hold on much longer and so went to help them. The fight had started. Jacken saw the first nin jump over Naruto and come running towards them. The old woman had jumped down from the head wagon and was hiding under the wagons. As the kunoichi came closer, Jacken prepared 2 kunai in his hands and saw Hanabi prepare her byakugan. She dropped into a fighting position, with her torso leaned back and both hands open and at the ready in front of her. The nin came closer and pulled out a chain with a kunai attached to the end. She stopped and swung it wide, the length of the chain and kunai filling the gap between her and them. Hanabi ducked below the chain and ran forward to confront the woman. Jacken ducked beneath the chain and also charged forwards. The nin pulled the chain back, jumping backwards, catching the kunai. She pulled another chain out and threw both of the kunai. One toward Jacken, on her left, and one at Hanabi on her right, crossing the chains over one another. Though neither hit, the woman swung both chains, causing them to snake back towards the 2. Though Hanabi, with her byakugan, saw the ploy and ducked below the lower of the chains, Jacken only saw one coming back at his legs and jumped, getting caught on the top chain. The chain hit him and sent him flying to the left against a tree and knocked him out. Hanabi went on, not seeming to notice his fallen comrade. She quickly closed the gap between them and struck out. The kunoichi dropped both chains and knocked away her strikes. Each one blocked was quickly followed up by another and another. The sound nin finally found an opening and kicked at the young genin. Though she saw the strike coming, Hanabi could not block or dodge fast enough. The other woman was much faster than her and she had only kept up due to her byakugan. The kick sent Hanabi flying back and she turned it into a roll and was up on her feet. She pulled 4 shuriken and threw them at the charging kunoichi, who had drawn a long kunai and had managed to block all 4, and charged again. Going again into the pattern of strike and block. Finally, though, the other woman's speed had caught up to Hanabi as she brought down the kunai and cut along the right side of Hanabi's face. Wincing with the pain, Hanabi bent her neck to the left. The woman pulled up the kunai and prepared a finishing blow when a bright light caught her eyes. Jackin had managed to get up after a while and was now right next to where the two had been fighting. He slid his right hand down the left arm and the light jettisoned out of his hand, striking the sound nin in the face with amazing speed. The nin was blinded now, holding her hands over her face and trying to squint between her fingers. Jackin lunged forward, his fist extended. The kunoichi though had seen the attack through wincing and grabbed his arm, swinging him into Hanabi, who had been stunned from the light as well. The kunoichi raised her kunai and said, "We knew Konoha was weak, but this is just pathetic. I knew we didn't need Orochimaru. Now die gracefully." She raised the kunai higher and would have plunged it down if not for Naruto, who had come up and was holding her hand with his right. The other hand had a clone forming the Rasengan on it. When it was formed, he plunged it into he back. Jackin looked up and saw Naruto holding her arm, and then, as if a bomb had exploded in her chest, her whole front side exploded in blood and organs, Naruto's hand visible through the other side. Hanabi couldn't believe her eyes. She had seen it through the Byakugan. She saw Naruto and the clone, watched as the chakra built up in his palm. The chakra was a surging storm in the palm of his hand. She wondered that it didn't explode as he held it there. Then he plunged the orb into her body, watched as the surging power that was caught in the sphere exploded, and the woman who both Jackin and herself could not put a mark on, let alone defeat, was destroyed. Naruto pulled his hand out of her body and she fell forward. Naruto fell down onto his hands and knees, low on blood from his fight. He was still bleeding profusely and he needed to bandage them up. He looked over at the two younger genin. Hanabi was on her back, her face pale with the blood from her cut beginning to soak her clothing. Jackin was looking up at him, lying on his stomach across her legs. He was in shock from the sight. If his face wasn't already white, he would have been pale. Naruto then looked over at Yamato. He had managed to take out one of the shinobi, who was impaled on a spike. The other one fighting fiercely, sending waves of fire jutting out with every punch. Naruto didn't think he could do anything but get in the way with his arm. But he stood up, he could still do something. He began to walk towards the fierce battle, trying not to be noticed. Yamato's battle had started with the two ninja coming at him. The first, a red-haired man with bright green eyes, attacked from above, and the second, a man with dark blue eyes and long brown hair and a scar running from his left eye down his face and onto his neck, attacked from below. Yamato blocked the first with his hands and stopped the second with a kick. The red-haired man jumped back and threw shuriken he had grabbed midair when he landed. Yamato made several signs and made a wall off wood to catch them. The scarred man had made signs of his own and pulled up a large rock. While the rock was held mid-air by the second man's chakra, the first one had made some seals and set the rock ablaze and sent it towards Yamato. He jumped back from the wall, and when the rock hit the pressure and the heat caused it to explode, causing pieces of rock and wood to come flying towards him. Making quick seals, Yamato used a replacement jutsu, and instead of being impaled by the fragments from the explosion, he was hidden in a tree. Using the break in combat, Yamato made several hand signs and two wood clones came out of the tree he was standing on. The clones jumped out, each one confronting one of the men. Yamato used shuriken and kunai while they fought with his clones. The fighting like this went on until a large flash came from the wagon train. Yamato and the clones, looking in concern for the young genin, moved their attention to the flash. Both of the shinobi used the time to use their jutsu. The red-haired man making a series of 6-hand seals, then punching at the clone with a large wave of fire that consumed the clone. The other shinobi making a few signs and sending a large rock at the clone, taking off its head. As soon as the clones were dispatched, the two shinobi turned to Yamato and charged in, swiping at his feet and his chest, working in series to try and threw him off balance. Finally, when Yamato had managed to push both away and get some room between the two, did they mess up? The two both jumped in, pulling out kunai and going in. Yamato made some quick signs and two spikes came out of the ground. The red-haired man was able to jump over the spike, obviously the faster of the two, but the scarred man was impaled. Seeing his friend, the red-haired man made the six-hand seals again and started at Yamato with a barrage of fiery punches. Between the heat and the mont's speed, Yamato was beginning to get burns along his sides and arms. Suddenly, after coming beside a tree, a large gust of wind came and threw the man across to another nearby tree. Yamato took the opening to end the battle. He made 4 seals and a log of wood came up from the ground. With a punch the wood splintered and pierced the man all over his body. It was after the final blow was struck that Naruto finally collapsed from blood loss. Hanabi looked on in wonder as the injured Naruto blasted the remaining sound nin and watched as Yamato struck the nin down. Naruto collapsed, and Yamato ran over to him. As Yamato began to bandage his arm, she and Jacken both got to their feet and walked over to the two. As she approached, she heard Yamato say, "I can't believe he held its chakra in check the entire time." Yamato looked over the two, checking Hanabi's gash down her face and made sure that Jacken hadn't broken any bones. When he was done with them, he turned to the wagons and the old woman. She was still under her wagons. When they coaxed her out, Yamato had them gather the bodies and placed them on the wagons. "We must search the bodies to learn anything we can," Yamato explained. They began their dreary walk back to Konoha. Jacken walked beside the wagon that held Naruto's unconscious body. His left arm had been torn up badly in the battle. Yamato had wrapped his arm as best they could and proceeded the slow march back to Konoha. Jacken still remembered the death of the shinobi Hanabi and he had fought. He remembered how her front seemed to explode, though there was no fire, and seeing Naruto's hand through her. Jacken had never been more terrified in his entire life. He knew that being a shinobi would require him to see people die and to kill them, but nothing could have prepared him for that sight. Yamato had told them the sound nin that had attacked them had been Junin or upper-level Chunin and that they were never expected to defeat her. Jacken had a feeling that his comment had been meant for Hanabi more than him. The girl was strong, yes, but she was also overproud. Yamato had the bodies of the sound nin taken along with them so they could be inspected. The bodies were on the last 3 wagons, covered by some sheets that the old woman had bought. Jacken had seen the body of the nin Naruto had fought. Where its heart should have been there was a hole on both sides, not even the bone was there anymore. Jacken, his curiosity spiked, wondered how could Naruto be so strong. He never comes to training with me or Hanabi and he has been a genin for 3 years. Jacken mentally chided himself for thinking something that Hanabi was likely to say. For the life of him he could not come to like his partner. Naruto seemed to be able to be friendly with anyone, even Hanabi. It had been about an hour and a half since their confrontation. Suddenly there was a rustling in the trees to the left of the wagons. Everyone visibly stiffened and turned. Out jumped a large dog, soon followed by a person Jacken had never seen before. The person had long brown hair and red marks on his cheeks. The man and dog looked at the small wagon train, then, seeing Naruto on the first wagon, gave a start. "Naruto!" yelled the man and ran over to the wagon. "What happened to him?" he said, looking at Yamato across the wagon. Yamato responded, clearly relaxed. "We were attacked on our way back from the wave country by 4 powerful sound nin," he said, pointing to the other wagons. "While we did defeat them, Naruto lost a lot of blood and my other 2 genin suffered some injuries, but nothing as bad as Naruto." The other looked up at Yamato. Why would Orochimaru send his people to Konoha now? Were they after Naruto? "I don't know," said Yamato, "but Orochimaru has his reasons." Hanabi had walked closer to the 2 men who were talking and spoke up after hearing this. "I don't think they were sent by Orochimaru," she said. The 2 looked down at her, surprise in the new man's eyes, and a look of thinking and wondering in Yamato's eyes. She said, continued Hanabi, something like, "I knew we didn't need Orochimaru. I think they were just runaways." "It would make sense," said Yamato, that shinobi that were gathered by Orochimaru would have a grudge against the leaf. We will have to think on it more once the Hokage hears this news and we get Naruto to a hospital. Ah, I wouldn't worry too much about Naruto, said the other man turning to the large dog. Naruto will be there for on day and then run away to get some ramen. I'll head back to Konoha and inform the Hokage of what happened to you. The man gave one last look at Naruto and then jumped away towards Konoha, the dog following soon after. Once again though, Jaken's curiosity spiked, but Hanabi beat him to the question. Captain Yamato, why would Orochimaru be after Naruto? Yamato looked down at Naruto for a few seconds, then at Hanabi and smiled. I cannot tell you everything, it is Naruto's secret to tell. But Naruto lost someone very close to Orochimaru. Come on, let's get back on the road. Half an hour later, the little group had entered the town and parted with the old woman after she had carried Naruto and the bodies to the hospital. Yamato was away and giving his report to the Hokage. Hanabi and Jaken were being seen to by medical ninja. Two women, one with pink hair and the other with brown hair and a pig following her around, had taken Naruto. Jaken had told Hanabi, when the two came to get Naruto, that the pink-haired girl was Sakura Haruno, a former teammate of Naruto's. Hanabi had known both girls, of course, they were both the apprentices of the Hokage. She had been brought up knowing all of the political figures in Konoha, and apprentices to the Hokage were no exception. The cut on Hanabi's face had been healed as best as the lower-level medical nin could. A scare now ran down the right side of her face, a scar she would have for the rest of her life. Jaken had some bad bruising on his arm, where the chain had struck him, and the skin would be sensitive for a few days. Hanabi could not help but fall into a trance-like state, where she would zone out many of the things around her and go deep into thought. How could he be so strong? He has never once trained with any of us and he was a genin for 3 years. How could he use an attack that destroyed someone like that? Was there something she was forgetting? Something seemed to stick out in her mind yet stayed hidden. Her thoughts continued to wander, deeper and deeper. How could both me and the tool be defeated so easily? Yamato had said we were never expected to defeat them, that they were Junin. Bullshit. We should have been able to do something deeper. They spiraled. Is what Naruto said in the Wave Country true? It seemed like some story that my mother would tell me when I was young. Two ninja of great strength fighting, and a boy becoming some sort of champion. But the people in the town said it was true, and the bridge's name. Deeper. Why would Orochimaru be after Naruto, if Naruto was the one to lose someone? Deeper still. Soon though Hanabi was distracted, someone had shaken her out of her thoughts. Hanabi, said a voice, are you okay? She looked up and saw it was her cousin Neji. Yes cousin, I was just thinking. She replied honest enough. Perhaps he can answer some questions. She thought. Neji, do you know Naruto-kun? She asked, adding the extra respect for what she had seen today. Neji looked at her, a small smile on his face. Yes I do. I have not had a chance to come see him. I had been away on mission since you became a genin. Why? He asked. Naruto-kun was placed on my team, only 8 genin graduated this year. Really? Asked Neji, a small laugh on his voice. Consider yourself lucky. I do not know a better person to have on your team. He is very loyal to his friends, he would even chase them to the end of the earth to save them. He said. The laugh faded from his voice at this last comment. Where is Naruto? He lost a lot of blood when we were attacked and was taken by the Hokage's apprentices, Sakura and Shizune. The nin were that strong, said Neji to himself. Neji, she asked quietly, how do you know Naruto? Neji looked at her quizzically. We took the Chunin exams together, long ago. You were there at my fight, nearly 3 years ago, when Konoha was attacked. You saw when me and Naruto fought. Right. She did not remember though. She did not remember any of the fights from that day. When the sleeping jutsu was placed on the crowd, she had fallen from her seat and hit her head on the seat in front of her. She was never told about the few fights there were, the attack on Konoha being on everyone's lips and the fights seemingly forgotten in the chaos. No, cousin, I did not remember. How did your fight turn out? She replied. Neji looked at her, as if he did not believe the words that she had spoken. Naruto, he replied slowly, as the only person to ever defeat me in single combat, save your father. The only other person to come as close, I was able to kill first. Hanabi could not believe what he said. She had always thought Neji to be the best in the village, the best of the Hyuga line. She had seen her father and Neji spar, and seen Neji defeated, but that had not happened for since Neji became a Junin. How could Naruto defeat him? Why has he remained a genin if he is this strong? How? Why? A million questions went through her head. Do you resent him for defeating you? She asked suddenly. No, I only respect him for his strength, answered Neji, and then, as if reading some of her thoughts, went on. I respect him for being able to bring me the truth of my father. I thank him for giving me a bond with my uncle. I thank him for curing me of my blindness, when I would not see the truth. I also envy him his power and acknowledge that his greatest power is not in battle. Hanabi did not know what the last comment meant. Is he telling the truth? Does he really have this much respect for Naruto-kun? The questions kept coming. Come Hanabi, your father will be getting worried. Jacken had sat there, across from where Hanabi and her cousin had been talking. His mother was to come and see him home, the doctors had told him. He wondered how strong Naruto really was. Jacken couldn't wait for a chance to enter the Chunin exams. He would be able to see how strong Naruto was then. A young boy in black and a tall man with silver hair in the black and green vest of a Junin were up at the hospital clerk. Jacken heard him ask about Naruto. I'm sorry, sir, I don't have him down here yet, said the nurse. I know where he is, said Jacken, standing up. The pair turned around and looked at him. The one in all black had a sword on his back that protruded over his shoulder and short black hair. The tall Junin had a mask on and his forehead protector over his left eye. The two walked up to him, the Junin talking first. You know where Naruto is? Said the Junin in a low monotone voice. Yes, answered Jacken. He was taken by Sakura-chan and another woman to see to his wounds. The black-clad man had an uneasy look on his face. Were his wounds serious? He had taken several hits to the arm and lost a lot of blood. Said Jacken then, how do you to know Naruto-kun? We are on his team. Said the Junin. Though Jacken looked at the two confused, Naruto is on two teams currently. Said the Junin. Your team, led by Yamato, and Team 7, led by me. Team 7 has a different objective than normal teams, it is a recon team for info on a missing nin. Jacken had a thought suddenly, would that ninja be Sasuke? The Junin looked at the boy, for a boy he was in comparison, consideringly. Yes, Sasuke is the one we are looking for information on. Why is he on our team then, if he is on another team? I saw how strong he was. No, you didn't, said the man. No one, not even Naruto himself, has seen how strong he really is. But I must be going. Sai, will you wait here until we can go see Naruto? I have some work I must do. Of course, Kakashi, said the man who was apparently named Sai. After a while, Jacken's mother had come. The woman was as white as her son, her hair was cut close to her head. She had a slim body, her forehead protector around her neck. She asked him what had happened, as they walked down the dusty roads that led to their house. He told her and she took it all quietly. When he finished, a few moments of silence came, followed by, perhaps we should go a little further in the training I've been giving you. The Hyuga girl and her family seem to do good training their children. Jacken had a smile on now. I would much appreciate it, mother. After today I have been wondering if I will be strong enough to enter the Chunin exam in 4 months. The woman laughed and messed up the boy's hair. Well, if that's what we're aiming for, then we have no time to lose. I have a few jutsu you should be strong enough to handle. We'll speed you up and work on the different light jutsu and you should be ready in time. Jacken was so happy that he didn't see his mother slow down and walk behind him before she had him running. Naruto woke up to the sound of a bird chirping in his window. He moved his head and saw Sakura sleeping in a chair nearby his bed. He gave a little smile. I guess I worried her. He thought to himself. It was morning, he could see the sun rising through his window. He looked down and saw his hand in a white binding. Got a little clumsy. Then he sat up in the bed, his clothing on the other side of the room. Holding the hospital robe close, he walked over to them. The jacket was ruined, but the sleeveless undershirt and pants were still in good condition. He threw on the pants and was about to pick up the shirt when Sakura woke up. She looked at him and then standing up and yelled at him, "What's this? We spend 2 hours trying to patch you up and get you enough blood and you're up and trying to leave already. I should kill you myself instead of giving some sound nin the pleasure." Naruto, clearly petrified of the angry woman, could not respond. He just pulled his hand away from the shirt and walked over and sat on the bed. "Sorry Sakura-chan. Hemp. Well, I was waiting so I could talk to you," said the pink-haired Kunoichi. "I hadn't been able to tell you but we have some news on Sasuke." The blonde-haired boy looked up at this. "Really? What is it?" The girl had a sad look on her face and tears started to come down her face. She jumped into Naruto, giving him a hug and crying into his chest, "We don't have half a year, Naruto. We only have 2 months at most." Naruto looked at the pink-haired girl, wide-eyed, as she cried. 2 months. It's impossible. How do you know? The girl looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. Team 7 went on recon with Jiraiya-sama. By gathering the data from what Yamato saw of Orochimaru and what we saw and heard, his current body is already starting to reject his soul and will soon try to transfer bodies. Naruto thought for a while. 2 months. 2 months. What can we do? Then Naruto came up with an idea. All we need to do is keep Sasuke and Orochimaru separated or occupied and he will not be able to make the switch. But try as he could, he saw no way to make it possible. "Sakura, we must try to do something. Try and find where they are. We must try and get them one more time." Sakura looked up at him. "Ahoo. We'll do it, we must," said the girl, getting up. "I should get to work then. We have to do something." Naruto watched as she left, hoping she was alright. He wanted to find Sasuke more than anyone, but she had looked thinner than usual, her eyes had bags that showed signs of sleep deprivation. Naruto turned to his orange and black shirt and struggled to put it on around his cast. He then pulled himself up to the window with his good arm and jumped over to the nearest rooftop. "Time for some ramen," he said to himself. Hanabi woke up and got dressed. Putting on the black clothing she, and other members of the Hyuga clan, normally wore. She tied her head protector around her waist and walked towards the main hall, looking for her father or Neji. The only person in the main hall was Hinata. "Hello sister," said the older girls, "how are you today?" Hanabi did not like the girl. They were siblings, true, but the girl was weak. She remembers her father saying how she was weaker than her little sister. That was when Hinata was sent to the academy. Though Hanabi was distracted today. A thought came to her then. "Sister," said Hanabi, despising every second she had to play niceties with the older girl, "what do you know about Naruto Uzumaki?" The older girl blushed and looked down. "Naruto-kun is very strong. He has always worked harder than everyone else, even when the others in the school would make fun of him. I heard he was on your genin team, sister." A little laugh in her voice at this. "You should be very happy. He has been through a lot and can help with many things." These were all things that Hanabi had already known. She did wonder though why everyone seemed to laugh at the fact that he was on her genin team. She then asked, who was his sensei? Hinata. Hinata looked at the younger girl and thought for a second. Oh, that's right. He was trained by Kakashi Hatake until Sasuke ran away. He spent the past 2.5 years training with his new mentor, Jiraiya-sama. Hanabi could not believe it. She had known both names. Kakashi Hatake was the son of Konoha's Silver Fang and known as the copycat ninja. Jiraiya-sama was known by everyone in Konoha. He was one of the legendary three, the greatest of shinobi to ever come out of the village. How could she ever expect to compete against someone trained by those two? She could now believe how he was so strong. Hinata, do you know where father is? Yes, sister. He is in the courtyard sparring with cousin Neji. Why? She felt no reason to her sister suddenly. Why? How am I going to become strong enough to compete in the Chunin exams if I don't start training? The two of them went to the courtyard, not far away. Neji and Hiyashi were walking from the center of the courtyard. Hiyashi looked at his daughters together, a smile flashing across his face. There had been an animosity from the younger girl that he had feared would cause more problems between the three of them. Hanabi had always been bitter, only having a mother during her younger years. He wondered when they had been able to come to terms. The older daughter had been his pride and joy when she was younger. He had had a grudge against the child and blamed her for his brother's death. He had realized eventually that such a thing was ridiculous. He had not realized this until it was too late. He had already sent her to the academy and given praise to her sister, while shunning her. Hanabi came closer and they both bowed down on one knee. Father, I wished to ask a favor of you, she said formally. Of course. I would do anything for my daughters, said the man, truly meaning it. I would ask of you to train me again, said the young girl. While I have graduated from the academy, I wish to participate in the Chunin exams in 4 months. The only one on my team who is ready for them is far ahead of either me or the last person on the team, and I wish to come to the exam and hold myself up during the fights. Hiyashi looked at his daughters considering. The younger one was eager to learn and wished to accelerate fast enough to compete. She was younger than when Hinata had taken the exams. Would she truly be ready to kill? He had heard of the incident outside of the village from Neji. That small sight of what death is would not be enough. He could not prepare her for that, he must prepare her as best he could. He then thought of his eldest daughter. She had been able to become a Chunin, but could he truly train the younger and deny the elder? He had done it in the past, but that was out of spite. He could try to mend what he had done, if it could indeed be mended. Yes, I shall train you, both of you, said Hiyashi. When he said it, both girls looked at him in shock. Hinata had not expected to be offered the chance, and Hanabi was clearly not expecting to have to share the training with her sister. Yes, the animosity is still there, he thought to himself. Thank you, father, said Hanabi, a grimace on her face as she bowed down. Hinata also thanked him but asked when Hanabi had left to meet her team, do you truly wish to train me, father? I would understand if you only trained Hanabi. Hiyashi was a little disappointed in his daughter's inability to stand up for herself. Perhaps training her will help a little. He had heard from Neji that she wished to change herself. She had started to, and now she had to go farther and finish it. Hinata, I wish for you to train with me as well. I did not do as I should have when you were younger, but I will do what I can for you both now. Thank you, father. Jacken walked into the hospital around noon and went up to the clerk. He had come to see Naruto and see if he would be able to do missions with them again soon. The nurse told him where Naruto's room was and he began to walk. He had started training with his mother yesterday. He had never thought the speed training would end. She had worked him harder than anyone else he had ever trained with. She told him the idea was to become fast enough to attack as soon as your enemy closed his eyes. Her training would work wonders with his jutsu, and he hadn't even began to learn the higher levels yet. He got up to the room and saw the man, Sai, in the room. He was looking around like he had just got there. Hiya, he said with a smile, I remember you from yesterday. Sorry I never introduced myself yesterday, I was worried about Naruto-kun. My name is Sai. Hello, I'm Jacken Orochi. Where is Naruto-kun? Sai just shrugged his shoulders, seems like he ran away already. Jacken thought on what the strange man form yesterday had said. Do you know where Naruto eats ramen? Said Jacken, putting his hand to his head. I thought I was going to relax today.